Gregg Roman is the director of the Middle East Forum. Roman previously served as the director of Community Relations Council for the Jewish Federation of Greater Pittsburgh. He also previously served as the political advisor to the Deputy Foreign Minister of Israel and worked for the Israeli Ministry of Defense. Gregg, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Gregg, can you tell us what's the latest you're hearing about the conflict that's going on in Israel between Israel and Hamas?
We're right now at close to 1,000 Israeli civilians and soldiers who were brutally massacred last Saturday when an attack began at 6:30 in the morning. And there was multiple Israelis, including hundreds of whom were at a end of Sukkot, the Jewish festival, having a party in the north of the Gaza Strip. And 15 different communities were invaded by over 1,000 Hamas terrorists that brutally rampaged through the streets, driving on pickup trucks, hanging in paragliders, and driving on motorbikes equipped with RPGs, anti-tank missiles, and small arms, and proceeded to raze, rape, and pillage any Israeli who came in their path. Now, where we are 3 or 4 days later after the beginning of the conflict, the Israeli Defense Forces have been able to hermetically seal the terrorists back into the Gaza Strip. There's still pockets of Hamas which are roving around southern Israeli cities, which the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, are engaging with. And we currently have the possible beginning of a second front with the announcement by Hezbollah that they intend to commence military operations against Israel's forces in the north of the country. The country's on edge. And just to give you a little bit of a description here, this is the worst single-day death of Jews since the Holocaust. It's the equivalent of 6 9/11s, plus 130 Israeli and American captives being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza.
Wow. I'm just like at a loss of words right now when you put it in that context of how dire the situation is. And, you know, Gregg, I know there's been so many videos that have been posted on social media just showing the atrocities and the kidnappings and all the things that are going on. But I know there's a lot of Americans who don't really understand what's at the root of this issue. Why is there so much tension? Can you explain and break it down for us?
Sure. Since the early 1900s, there has been over 100 years of Arab and Islamist rejection of the idea that the Jewish people can return to their ancestral homeland after 2,000 years in exile. What has evolved over 5 or 6 generations of Palestinian education is a murderous, genocidal ideology which encourages the ethnic cleansing of Jews from their home. And what we saw on Saturday was the execution of the belief in that ideology. Now, since the Oslo Accords, which happened in the early 1990s, there's been this thought that there can be peace between Israel and the Palestinians having autonomy and governance over the areas where they live in the West Bank and Gaza, and even to the extent that in 2005, former Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon agreed to withdraw all Israeli soldiers and civilians from the Gaza Strip. This gave Hamas an opportunity to have 18 years to train for this moment that took place over the weekend, where they led a false strategy of quiet for quiet. As long as Hamas didn't attack, Israel wouldn't respond. But now what we realize is this was all cover for a diabolical plot to kill as many Jews as possible, to sink any potential efforts to have peace in the region between Israel and Arab states, and to bring us back basically to the Stone Age calculus that Hamas is now engaged in. And as a result of that, you see the pictures on social media. If anything, Israelis have been saying for decades that Hamas is a genocidal, hateful organization calling for the elimination of the Jewish people. What you saw on Saturday and what you're seeing now across all the networks is, like I said beforehand, the execution of the ideology.
Just thank you for breaking that down for us and just knowing this is the execution of ideology that is truly rooted in hate, and it's atrocious and just, I think, so unfathomable. And, you know, Gregg, can you talk to us about what does this mean for the world moving forward? I think when we hear about the news reports, we see what's going on, but what does this truly mean for us moving forward?
Well, let's look first at what it means for America. 9 Americans are dead because of this attack perpetrated by Palestinian terrorists. Beyond that, American citizens are being held captive in Gaza right now. So this isn't a binary equation between Israel and Palestinians. This is something that affects Western liberal democracies. It's akin to the attack that Islamists took on Paris when they blew up a concert theater. It's akin to the Madrid attacks where they killed hundreds of Spanish citizens. It's like 9/11. This is the Palestinian example, the testament of them trying to carry out what they believe. And because of that, it demands not just an Israeli response, but it demands a Western and global response to not just condemn terrorism, to condemn Palestinian ideology, but there must be a firm backing of whatever steps Israel must take to destroy Hamas in the Gaza Strip. I don't mean to disarm them. I don't mean to pacify their ability to carry out war. I mean the complete destruction and removal of Hamas from Gaza root and stem, so they go back to the hellhole that they originated from. And I'm sorry I'm using that kind of language, but that's where they deserve to be.
Because I know this is really just personal for you. So, Gregg, can you just tell us, like, what's really been festering in your heart, you know, just seeing all this unfold and just being in Israel and serving and, you know, the political, and just tell us, what does this really mean in your heart and what you're going through?
There's not one person in Israel who doesn't know someone who was killed. This will be the equivalent of 25,000 Americans dying in one day if we were to look at the population numbers. Some of my workers, especially one who I'm very close with, had their nephew shot in the face and trampled over by Hamas terrorists. The amount of cruelty, the amount of aggression, the inhumane behavior of the individuals who carried out these attacks can only be punished with one way. And that's to make sure that they no longer have the capability of waging war, so that they put down their swords and turn them to plowshares. But I think it will take a very heavy-handed response for that to happen. This is not the beginning nor the end of this conflict. This is just the opening shot in what I think will be a months-long process in eliminating hate in Gaza and hopefully throughout the wider Middle East.
You know, just our hearts are so touched by what you shared. I mean, I don't think we can even imagine the terror and the trauma that your friend that you were just sharing with us. Thank you so much, Gregg, for just providing insight and clarity and understanding about what's happening in Israel.
Thank you.